Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our latest episode of the Growth Playbook. Oh my goodness, you can tell it's a little early and a bit chaotic of a morning for me here. With my dad and I, we're continuing on in our planning for 2026 with confidence series today with what's next, spotting trends early on before they go mainstream. So I'm looking forward to our conversation and have some questions for us to toss out there and just brainstorm through together. So, good morning, Dad.
Good morning, and I think you meant to say great dad. You just got confused in through
Yeah.
there. That was it, right?
Yes.
That was okay. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew where that came from. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. It has a lot of relevance, not just to 26, but to business in general. And I think it's a interesting subject because we have walked down this what can be a rocky road in real life, and we've seen it in other firms in real life. So hopefully we can impart some stuff that will help in real life.
Agreed. Agreed. And I like one of the notes that you put in here when we were sharing the notes back and forth is actually a trend versus kind of chasing shiny. So that kind of segues us into how do you distinguish between a fad and a sustainable trend? And I find that chasing something new and shiny is a common thread across entrepreneurs. It's not one person specific. I feel like it might even just be a part of the characteristic of that natural born entrepreneur where they want to always have that new growth exciting thing. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I think you're right. I'm stumbling because there are all kinds of different entrepreneurs. There's the small business entrepreneur that grows to, and this is no disparaging remark, grows to $500,000 perfectly happy. He's not interested in anything new and shiny. So a growth-minded entrepreneur
Mm.
is what we're talking about. And in part, I think what goes on with the shiny, Kim, is that they have lived for years, perhaps, maybe it's less, but with a drive and with let's go get it and we can conquer the world. I don't know anybody like that, do you? But but some of those folks, if the business starts getting into a rhythm and a pattern, they start thinking uh, they they don't probably realize it, but something inside them needs that next thing, and so
Mm.
they just get caught into that would be cool. We could do that, and they go off running after that, which is a grave danger. Um,
Yeah.
it's how companies can die. Actually, it's one of the signs a company is losing its way. And it's often the entrepreneur who is building or has built a company who's responsible for it.
Mm.
No longer satisfied. I'm bored with making gears. Let's go off and make space shoes. There.
Well, and even not finishing an existing project. There's the world around us is just constantly coming out with new things and like the new shiny things. And if you have set into motion working on a particular project and you keep dropping it halfway through before seeing it through just to jump to the next thing, I see that as another commonality across some of those growth-minded entrepreneurs. And sometimes you have to, like, sometimes a new idea is better and it's going to give you greater ROI and it will give you faster results. So you can't be so steadfast in your ways of like, no, this was the plan, we're sticking with the plan. But I also see it as a fine balance because you can't keep dropping the existing plan just because a new idea has come to mind.
Well, you're right. And behind that wall, I think, maybe through the door, whichever way, there's this ego that's involved. And it can be in a larger corporation, a CEO, a savior CEO, it can be an entrepreneur, but the leader who's got so much confidence in herself or himself that since this is my idea, this is a good one.
Mm,
And so that kind of gets me back to a couple thoughts. One is that MIT report I read, 95% of new ideas like that fail. So, but that entrepreneur with that ego is going to think, not well, not mine. I'm obviously a 5%er. You know, so that which leads us to an idea needs to be tested. It needs to be verified. Just because you have what appears to you a great idea doesn't mean squat. And in my mind, and I've learned this from you, is that one of the ways that you test an idea is to ask the marketing departments, two departments, you've taught me that too. Ask whatever is the front of the back end. You tell me of your marketing department, go see if there's a market for this. And if it comes back no, then ask yourself, are you really Steve Jobs that you can create a market for something that doesn't exist? Or are you better off with an incremental improvement to your customers you already have that will wow them and please them without having to go through all the hassle of breaking into a new market with a new idea? Um, Two very different things. Test it. And one of the ways is, of course, and I think the preferred way is your marketing department, but another way is to have your people. They can be engineers, scientists, it can be your accountants, if you're an accounting firm, whoever it is, whatever you are. What do they hear from the clients?
Mm.
And get the feedback that way. That way you'll know, hey, somebody's out there, coming up with something new. And I'm of the mindset, let them. You can let them be first because then you can see what they fail at. You can improve upon it. Yeah, theirs lasts the month before it breaks. We got one with a year guarantee, and that kind of thing. It's not a race to be the first one to the market always. It's sometimes a race to the first one to fail to be the first one to the market.
Mm.
And be patient and test it and see what your customers think. You used to do that all the time. What do our clients want? As opposed to, hey, this will be great. We've both seen companies that do that, though. It's not, it's not unusual in any way. Just to find out that the marketplace isn't ready for it or just doesn't care. You know, we really don't care that you've added a third color to the dashboard. Big deal.
Yeah, and sometimes like there is a demand for it, but it's just not as great as once thought that it would be. And that's why I really like coming up with multiple scenarios, running multiple tests on different products, different things, different service lines. So that way you can do an analysis to see which one holds the most potential for the business rather than being narrow minded and just looking at one particular new idea. Have a few on the table and research all of them and determine which one's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck the fastest. Um, which kind of brings us somewhat back to, so the question was, how do you distinguish between a fad and a sustainable trend? And I know your notes had said that's not easy, but I think to just clarify, I think you did touch upon the answer to that question. And what you were just saying is wait, be patient, and see if the adoption rate is there in the marketplace from what other people are doing and learn from their mistakes and what they're doing well and not doing well. And that will help you know if it's more of that sustainable trend than it is. You don't have to be first to the marketplace with this blue ocean idea.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I want to get back to Blue Ocean in a minute because that book ticked me off. But in any event, I want to go to, I know it's really popular to put me in a minority position, but that's fine. Um, I think the thing that entrepreneurs can be misleading themselves is they think this thing's so great it's going to be instant success as opposed to a slow build out. Hey, there's the marketing, there's the sales, there's getting the pricing right, there's getting the competitive advantages on it right. I mean, it's a slow process, and that's one of the seven P's in another way. Dave Wharton's Tugboat Institute
Mm.
is be pragmatic with your innovations and don't look for this overnight success, but have multiple ones, as you said, and make sure that they're profitable real early on, rather than saying, we can lose millions and millions on this because it'll eventually. And Motorola did that. Zenith did that. All kinds of companies have been guilty of doing that, as well as small ones. It's hoping in a future that is unproven as opposed to prove it. You think it's a great idea to prove it. It's not that hard. Um, and I think it is to a driven entrepreneur that's boring, but to a pragmatic entrepreneur, it's like it's success and safety kind of wrapped up into one process so that I can ensure the success or pull the plug, fail fast, fail forward, right?
Yep.
Um, Now, my problem with blue ocean, now that you ask,
Please.
well, it probably has many good points, but the thing that sticks in my mind, because it's been years since I've read it, is that you look out over there and where you're not and say, why isn't anybody over there doing that? And go into those waters and it just kind of says it's a green field, it's the blue ocean, it's all yours, and all the rest of it. And the book makes it sound like it's going to lead you to success. I went online, did some research after we were part of our work. We had to read the book, and I looked for the negatives to the book, the complaints about the book, or the reactions to the book, all that sort of stuff. And what I found were some facts is that most companies that try that fail. The book doesn't tell you that. The book does not say you will fail most of the time, but the vast majority of people that tried it fail. There's a high risk that the book discounts. It sells a dream as opposed to reality. I mentioned MIT for products, that failure rate, but there's a 70% failure rate in new services, according to LLC.org. So those, you know me, I love the numbers. So ignore blue ocean, do what we're talking about. Don't just dream it and think that they will come. It's not a field of dreams. It's business. It's the way that it is supposed to work. Um, and if it's not profitable early on, don't kid yourself into thinking, spend another million, you'll make it profitable. Unless you have a million to burn.
Yeah, and I like how you said it's not that if you build it, they will come. So a quick fun side story on that. So Chloe really wants a horse. And I keep telling her no, yes, no, no. It's a hard no. And so she was incessantly asking a couple months back, and I said, you know what, go outside, clear the back of the yard, clear another acre of woods, build a barn, build the fence like the corral and everything, and it will come. Because if you build it, they will come. And she's like, what do you mean the horse will come? I'm like, well, that's the old saying. If you build it, they will come. So if you're willing to go dedicate your time and efforts to chopping down trees, clearing the land, building a barn and a corral, they'll just come. She has not tried doing any of that because she does not believe me that if she builds it, they will come. So I think it's just a good example of what we were talking about. Just because we think that we put together this grandiose new thing as our product offerings, it doesn't mean that people are going to just come and scoop it up right away. That's not how it works. It has to be a very well thought out designed plan where you've identified there is demand, know the target audience, know the communication strategy to the target audience, and you have all of that pre-built and understood before you even try going to market with a new thing, quote, a new barn.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And scoop it up is a great phrase in the analogy of the horse, by the way. That's most people that have a horse don't think about that. You can't pile that stuff up on your property. So you got to find a way to get rid of it, unless you have an extraordinary amount of land, which is not found here in New Hampshire. So I agree with you. And I would add to that, the leader or the leadership team has to be willing to say, we failed.
Mm,
And that's a special leader right there who says, I failed and my dream didn't work. Let's go on. But that's a leader people will follow, right? And that imparts to the rest of the team, hey, it's okay for me to try and fail too. And I'm not going to get fired for it. And I'm not going to get in trouble for it. And you start working together and experimenting in small teams and seeing what comes up. Like we used to have, I forget what the team was called, but at first it was just an idea, but then it had to develop a business model and work through it all to see whether it could be profitable before we put any money into it. Um, that's excitement when a company can do that.
Mhm.
Uh, so how do you spot a new trend? Just to circle back around, you listen, you invest in your marketing department, you listen to your customers, you can listen to your inside specialists, but then verify, check out their facts. There are very few economic trends that will help you early on. I mean, when you look at things like renewable energy, uh, there are plenty of trends that are evident. Maybe not statistically like we were used to with rate of change developed for over years, but you can read and see all about it. Nuclear energy is making a big comeback. So if you can find a way into nuclear energy, you're going to do well as you go forward, as long as you understand it's going to take years of regulatory hurdles. It's a new nuclear world. So if you're a nuclear tech from 20 years ago, nobody cares. It's a brand new world, all that kind of stuff. But paying attention to trends that are in investment circles and in the media can give you the ideas as to where you maybe can find some play. Let me give you an example. I thought this was such a cool idea. This company I'm with, I know, and I do some stuff with FSI, and they won't mind me sharing this. They have a product that at the bottom of a telephone pole or utility pole, it's called utility pole, that sucker's got to be in the ground, right? So it doesn't wobble and all the rest of that stuff. And after a hurricane comes through, or even in regular construction, you pour that cement, and it's days before you can come back and start stringing wires because it takes time to set. They developed a product where the next day it's set. So they're taking, I think it's at least a week out of the process. So you can set this pole, go to the next one, go back the next day and use it instead of having to be, a mile down the road, bring everything back and all the rest of that. So it's like those guys I thought that is so smart. And you can use it in the rain. Cement doesn't set well in the rain. Their
Right.
product is impervious to the rain. It can be
Oh,
pouring out and this thing is set the next day.
oh wow. That's wild.
So in their field, they saw something, tested it, and doing very well at it. It's fun to watch that.
That's a great story. I love how that's building. That's a great example of what you were saying earlier, building off of your core strengths. You see a need or an area for improvement in your own industry where you're actively serving and have active clientele, and then you fill that need. That's going to have a higher success rate than trying to branch off and do something and catch a new fad or try to jump on the bandwagon of some new trend somewhere else.
Right, exactly so. And to me, if you want to reduce the risk of starting that brand new thing in another field, another industry, you set up a separate LLC,
Hmm.
fund it, and go, that's your funding. Have fun with that. Hope it goes well. I'll be watching you.
Bon voyage.
That's right. Yeah, and that's actually one of the problems. And this is from Jim Collins, is that leaders will often get so engaged in the new thing they forget to watch the old thing. It's called the
Mhm.
flywheel. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
the flywheel's out of balance because they're not watching it anymore. They're so enthralled by this new thing, and that happened to Motorola with their uh, telephone satellites, which was a complete failure. They didn't know technology was bypassing them. They over invested in it, and the CEO was paying no attention to the company and how it was beginning to fail underneath them.
Mm.
It's common, so
Yeah,
be
no, that
careful
is a
with that.
common mistake. Yeah, looking elsewhere when because you're so focused on the new thing that you're executing on, forgetting about the core business and just thinking it's on autopilot. Nothing can just be set on autopilot. It takes consistent work and effort and guidance and attention. Um,
Yes, absolutely. Um, One of the things you had asked earlier about is when is a good time to execute on these things? And I like that question a lot, Kim. When I was still working and people would ask about an entrepreneurial thing, is a recession a bad time to start a business? I said, no, all you got is up. You're starting with zero sales. And actually, a small company with an entrepreneur who's driven, even in a recession, is going to gain some clients and is going to go forward. Um, So we're not really talking about that person. That person can start a business anytime. Probably not at the top of be at the top of the business cycle, but even then, it's going to grab some clients from other people and be able to do okay, just not as well as he or she thought. But a company that's established, starting a business at the wrong time can be quite painful depending upon the product. If it's a product that is more expensive because it's bigger, faster, better, starting that in late C or in D, which we've talked about rates of change in phases before, that's a big mistake. Nobody cares about faster, better. It's the more expensive that counts in phase D, and it's a walk away. you know, if it's less expensive, um, or the same price and will last longer, now you have an ROI that really sells in late C and in D. So A, it's got to be the right product. And B, your marketing department's got to be informing the sales department on how to position this thing based upon where you are in the business cycle. But launching the wrong product at the wrong time just guarantees it's going to lay there and not produce what you want. And 6 months later, when the economy turns, or 9 months later, when the economy turns, you know, I don't have any statistics on this, but I bet you a lot of people have said, "Oh, that thing's a dud," not realizing they laid the egg at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah, and so and to your point, and for everybody that's listening, so that's using those rates of change to identify the phases of the business cycle. We have mentioned all that methodology information's on itraeconomics.com. And it's very, very important because I know that's what we used to do a lot too, is we'd look ahead to say, all right, when are we going through different stages, these different phases, and then how long will it take for development? How long will it take for proper rollout, so on and so forth, and you just back date it from there so that way you're timing it appropriately. Because it's not like
Yeah,
I can just wake up. Most people can't just wake up today and say, today's the day that I'm going to dream up and launch a new product, right? Because I'm in this phase. So it needs to be a part of your strategy where you're very, very forward looking, and you have the right tools to be forward looking.
yes. And what I agree 100%. What came to my mind is you cannot be impetuous and do this. You have to be a thoughtful planner and do this, which means you may love the idea, but it's got to be pragmatic. Uh, it sounds like it'd be so much fun the other way, but it's fun until you're out of cash.
Yeah, and actually, I like that you just said that because it made me think of a story. I was speaking with a client yesterday. They were considering investing in some social media expertise, and her comment was, I really like them. I really love the idea. Don't see the ROI, the cost that they would be charging us. We're not going to close that much more new business to offset the cost. So I think we should just walk away. And I was like, Amen.
Yeah, yeah, isn't
Good
that amazing?
job.
Yeah,
Because it's not easy for some people to do. Because she was honest. She's like, I really like the people. I really love the idea. I'd love to say that we're doing this, but I just don't see the return. Good job.
that's a good leader. That's a good pragmatic leader there, as
Yeah.
because it's so easy to be the other way. Ignore the ROI and say this will really help us, and we can really make this work. And you and I want to say, prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Show me the results.
Yes. How many more sales and will we be able to drive? And what's the ROI? It always comes back to that, doesn't it? What's the ROI?
Yeah, and that's a lot what I'm doing with my clients, most of them actually at this point, planning for 2026, is that they all have these ideas of things that they want to do next year that's new and improved. And so I'm going through and doing scenario plans with them where I'm saying, okay, what do you need to do to make that happen? What is it going to cost you time and money? Like how much, put estimates to it, what resources are you going to have to apply to it basically? And then what number of sales do you think you're going to get at what periods in time from these different actions? And then what are the average deals closed for those types of sales based upon your historical norms? And so it's really helped whittle down. One of my clients had, I think it was like 6 or 7 different new things that they were considering for next year, and now they have one. but now they're going to be focused on that one, and that's what they needed to hit their budget for next year. And so I love that it allowed them to have that focus in the new year, to really just gain that traction and hit their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those stories
Mm,
because that's the way it should be done. And you bring up another point when you run into a company that has all these new things they want to bring in at the same time, that's pretty much a guaranteed mess, right?
mm,
Salespeople have no idea what's going on, and the product training isn't there, and the service behind it. And I mean, you look at companies that fail, that's usually a sign that they're thrashing about in the water as they're getting ready to drown. They're
mm.
just making all kinds of splashes, but there's nothing supporting them.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what are our closing thoughts that we want, our closing takeaways for people listening? Some advice for them about spotting and or acting on trends, and then just new markets, new messaging.
I That's all good. I had in my mind from Dave Wharton, be pragmatic and in your process here, and make sure that it is paced growth. You're not going to grow double your company overnight. That's rare, and if you make that your goal, you're going to fail. Paced growth, pragmatic growth, and at the same time, you as a leader must be uh, humble enough to say, you know what, this isn't working, instead of forcing it to work. And if you don't have that humility within you, Thomas Edison's a great example of that, right? And he said, "Nah, this isn't going to work." So he goes on to the next thing. Henry Ford was, failed so many times. You can look at all the great innovators and industry leaders. And when you dig down deep, you find that they failed. But they didn't let them stop them, and they didn't stick with that failure. They went on to something else.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, and my addition to that for my closing thoughts is to not have your expansion plans be emotional. You can't be emotionally tied to your new ideas. I see a lot of the growth-minded entrepreneurs get very excited and then they get very frustrated, very excited, very frustrated. It has to be grounded in data. It has to be, to your point, this pragmatic process, a very data-driven, pragmatic process. Remove the emotion, and just focus on the dollars and what makes sense for the business.
I agree, and that's easy for me because I'm an economist. We have no emotional content.
I don't
Most
know.
people
I've met a few economists with emotions in my day.
well, there is that, but most people don't know this. I'm the first living heart donor. Like, it's not a problem for me.
Oh, excellent. Well, thanks for chatting with me about this subject. I'm excited to continue on in our planning for the following year. And this isn't just specific to 2026. This is information that should be used every year as people are planning ahead, and using that data to make sure that they're making the right decisions for the business every year at a time.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, it was nice to see you, and I'll see you on our next episode.
You bet. I'll be here. Bye.
Bye.